Every room hides a secret, and every shadow tells a story, but some stories are never meant to be discovered when the night grows heavy and the world outside falls silent. The walls of your room start to breathe with a life of their own. You can feel it in the stillness, the way the air turns colder, the way your thoughts begin to slow down as if something unseen is listening closely. You try to tell yourself it is just your imagination. Maybe the sound of the wind, maybe the old house settling, but deep down you know something is not right. You can feel the pull of the darkness in the corner of your room, the place you always avoid looking at for too long. The closet stands there quietly, as it always does, but tonight it feels different, heavier, as if it holds more than just the clothes you left inside. You shift under your blanket, pretending not to notice the faint creak, the soft rustle that echoes from within. And then it happens, the feeling of being watched, the kind that burns on the back of your neck, the kind that freezes your breath. You know someone or something is there, staring back through the thin line between the door and the frame, waiting for you to look. This is not just a nightmare. It is the kind of fear that seeps into reality. This is the beginning of the eyes in the closet. The horror begins, not in some dark forest or haunted mansion, but in a simple bedroom where everything feels familiar and safe, a place where we sleep, dream, and hide from the world. The story takes that comfort and twists it into fear. The closet stands quietly in the corner, something we walk past every day without a second thought. It holds our clothes, our secrets, our silence. Yet in the story, it becomes something else, something alive. When the familiar becomes dangerous, our sense of safety breaks, the mind begins to turn on itself. The comfort we trusted now feels wrong, and the things that once protected us start to feel like traps. This is where the real terror begins, not from what we see, but from what we believe should never hurt us. It is the realization that horror can exist in the ordinary, that the shadows inside our own rooms might not just belong to us, that the things we depend on to feel safe can be watching us back. The fear of being watched is one of the oldest and deepest fears that lives inside every human being. It is the feeling that something or someone has their eyes on you, even when you are alone. It begins quietly with a chill on the back of your neck, a strange heaviness in the air, a sense that you are not truly alone. The story captures this feeling perfectly, turning an ordinary night into a suffocating experience. Every flicker of light, every creak in the walls, every tiny sound feels like a signal that something unseen is close by. The human mind starts to imagine faces, shapes, movements in the dark corners. Because it cannot accept the unknown, the more Daniel tries to convince himself that nothing is there, the stronger the presence becomes. This kind of fear does not need to show itself. It feeds on imagination. It grows with silence. It turns comfort into paranoia until even the act of breathing feels unsafe. It is the horror of invisibility, the terror that you are the one being observed, powerless to stop it. Trapped in your own home while unseen eyes follow your every move, silence is one of the most powerful tools of fear. It is not empty. It is alive. It listens. It waits. It breathes with you in the story. Silence becomes the weapon that traps Daniel inside his own fear. Each pause, each quiet second stretches longer than it should, until his heartbeat becomes the only sound left in the room. The absence of noise is not peace. It is pressure building slowly in the chest, a feeling that something is hiding just beyond the edge of hearing. The human mind cannot handle that kind of stillness for long, because when there is no sound, the imagination begins to scream louder than anything real. The silence between the whispers becomes heavier than the whispers themselves. It creates a space where anything can exist, and that uncertainty breaks the line between what is real and what is imagined. Daniel listens for movement. But the more he listens, the more the silence consumes him. It wraps around him like fog and turns every breath into a countdown. This is where the horror grows, not through sudden noise or violent chaos, but through the unbearable quiet that comes before it. The silence itself becomes the monster waiting to strike. The unknown is what keeps the story alive long after the last word fades. It lingers in the mind like a shadow that refuses to disappear. When the eyes vanish from the closet, there are no answers, no explanations, no comfort, and that is where the real terror hides. The mind cannot rest without reason. It wants to understand. It wants to label things as real or imagined. But when there is no truth to hold on to, the fear grows deeper. Daniel is left with questions that have no voice. Was it human? Was it something else? Or was it his own mind turning against him? The story never tells, and that silence is what makes it unforgettable. The absence of answers forces the audience to fill in the blanks themselves, and what they imagine is always worse than what can be shown. The unknown is endless. It feeds on curiosity. It grows in the dark corners of thought. It follows the viewer home, making them stare at their own closet, wondering what might be. Behind it, the fear becomes personal, because it no longer belongs to Daniel. It belongs to anyone who has ever felt that quiet dread in their own room. The story traps the audience in uncertainty, and that uncertainty becomes the real monster, one that cannot be escaped or explained. When the eyes vanish, the real horror begins, because the mind cannot stand not knowing. It craves answers. It needs reason and explanation, but this story gives none, and that is what makes it so deeply unsettling. The human brain is built to find patterns to connect cause and effect, but when something breaks that logic, when the rules no longer make sense, it feels like reality itself is cracking. Daniel never discovers what those eyes were. He never learns if they belong to a creature, a ghost, or something beyond understanding. And that absence of truth becomes the most powerful part of the fear. The silence after the encounter is worse than the encounter itself, because the imagination refuses to stop filling in the blanks. Every sound becomes suspicious. Every flicker of light feels alive. The unknown transforms into an invisible presence that follows him everywhere. Even when he moves away, the fear travels with him. It becomes part of his mind, and that is where it truly thrives. It hides inside thought and memory, waiting for a quiet moment to surface again. The unknown does not need to appear. It just needs to exist quietly, reminding you that something once watched you and might still be watching. The fear that follows home is the kind of terror that refuses to fade. It does not stay trapped in the story or in the room where it began. It seeps into the corners of memory and grows inside the mind long after the lights have come back on. Daniel left that house behind, but fear is not something you can pack away. It becomes part of you. It hides behind every door, every reflection, every quiet night when the world feels too still. He starts to notice the smallest things again, the creak of the floor, the faint movement of shadows, the whisper of air beneath the door, each one dragging him back to that night, the night when the eyes stared through the darkness, and into his soul. He tells himself it was just a dream, but dreams do not breathe. Dreams do not blink. The fear changes him. It reshapes how he sees the world. Now every dark hallway feels longer. Every shadow feels deeper, because once you have been watched, once you have felt eyes following you through the dark, you begin to feel them everywhere. It is not a ghost that follows him. It is the memory of being seen, the memory of being powerless, and that memory never stops watching it. It waits in the silence, in the half-open door, in the cold that creeps into the room, reminding him that some fears are not left behind. They live with you, they move with you, and they wake up whenever the night grows quiet again. The night grew colder until the air itself felt thick, like it was pressing against the walls, the kind of silence that is not peaceful but heavy, almost alive. Daniel lay frozen on his bed, staring at the outline of the closet, the same ordinary closet that now felt like a doorway to something far beyond what he could understand. He wanted to believe it was all in his head, just a trick of exhaustion or fear, but deep down he knew it was real. He could feel it in the stillness, the faint rhythm of breath that did not belong to him. Every second stretched longer, every heartbeat louder. He pulled the blanket over his face as if it could protect him from what was hiding in that darkness. But even then he could feel the weight of its stare pressing through the fabric. It was patient, silent, and unending, waiting for him to move, waiting for him to look again. When morning came, the closet door stood open just slightly enough to show the shadows waiting inside. Daniel never spoke about what he saw that night, but the look in his eyes told the story better than words ever could. And sometimes, late at night, when the house grows still again, that same soft sound returns, a slow whisper of breathing from behind the door, reminding him that once something finds you in the dark, it never truly lets you go.